So welcome to the presentation on the supplementary theories by Darwin. In addition to the theory of natural selection, Darwin proposed two other types of selections, namely the sexual selection and artificial selection. Apart from the theory of sexual selection and artificial selection, he also tried to explain the process of heredity by way of theory of pangenesis. So these three theories are the ones proposed by Charles Darwin, um, and here in this presentation we'll be looking into in detail. Okay. The theory of sexual selection was actually proposed by Darwin in his book entitled The Descent of Man in 1871, and he proposed his theory to account for the origin of secondary sexual characters which could not be explained by natural selection, the theory of natural selection. Okay. Secondary sexual characters help in the breeding and reproduction by attracting the opposite sex. So some common examples of secondary sexual characters include antlers of male deer, the brightly colored feathers and the songs or the bird calls of many birds, vocal sac and nuptial pads of frogs, and so many examples are there. So according to Darwin, these characters are not useful to the species to be formed by natural selection. So what he says is that these characters cannot be formed by natural selection because it is not useful to the particular species for the survival. Okay, so but he believed that they are useful in the competition between males for the position of females, or it could also be useful in making a male or female attractive to the opposite sex. So Darwin based the theory of sexual selection on these assumptions. Okay, these were the assumptions based upon which theory of sexual selection was proposed by Darwin. The first one says many secondary sexual characters cannot be explained by natural selection because they are not useful in the struggle for life or struggle for existence. Right. Secondly, males seek females for pairing or for breeding, and males are more abundant than females, and hence, in many cases, there is a struggle among the males for the possession of females. Uh, Generally, the females choose males which are specially distinguished by more brilliant colors, maybe like more ornamentations, conspicuous ornamentations, and other such attractive characters. So these were the assumptions made by Darwin. Okay, and the objections to the theory actually in sexual selection, as per Darwin, it says female is the selecting agent, whereas in natural selection, nature is the selecting agent. And in natural selection, only organisms with favorable variations are selected. Similarly, in sexual selection, females prefer only those males which have more attractive features. So, hence, Darwin as per Darwin, competition for mating under the force of which secondary sexual characters develop is the selective device for choosing mates. Okay, so all this actually is based upon the assumptions, all these assumptions. Okay, now what were the limitations or objections to the theory of sexual selection? Like the theory of natural selection was accepted by the scientific community to a certain extent, but the theory of sexual selection was like it met with a huge amount of opposition by the scientific community at that time. The theory can apply only where the males are more in number. That was the first objection. Okay, it applies only where males are more in number or are polygamous. Polygamous in the sense when a male mates with more than one female. Okay, that is polygamy. So, but later studies showed that in most populations, sexes are almost equal in number. Most species, you can see male and female almost equal in number, and hence every male would eventually find a mate regardless of his powers in the struggle or in the combat. Okay, even where polygamy exists, a struggle for mating is the only one which operates for the sexual selection, and it is never the like female's choice that is active. Okay, so that is the first objection against the theory of sexual selection. Now, secondly, sexual selection cannot account for the remarkable colors of males in most of the fishes. In many fishes during the breeding season, they developed coloration. Okay, because the female, like, but what happens is the females may not even see the males which fertilize the already laid eggs. The females in many of the species, what happens is the females, they lay eggs in a particular place during the breeding time, and then they leave the vicinity, and the males come over and fertilize the eggs, right? But the females may not even come to know which male has fertilized the eggs it has laid. So what happens is the coloration developed in the case of such species has the no role in the sexual selection, isn't it? Similarly, the brilliant colors and curious horns of dung beetle, which get covered by the dirt, they are also not noted by the female. So there also such kind of ornamentation doesn't have, or secondary sexual characters doesn't have any role in the sexual selection. Okay. The thirdly, a high degree of aesthetic sense is necessary for the part of the female for appreciation of ornamentation or attractiveness of the male. But obviously, there is no scientific proof for such a kind of observation. Then there is a little evidence, very little evidence, that males successful in um, competition with other males necessarily leave more offspring. So here we can't say that those males which had become successful in the competition with other males for getting a female, obviously they didn't leave more offspring. So there is no proof in that. Okay. Then special movements, dances, vocalizations, etc., which occur during the breeding season, they are known to be meant for exciting the females. But these kind of behavior doesn't have any role in choosing, in actually making the female choose the particular mate. Okay, so that is also cannot be connected with the sexual selection. And many secondary sexual characters can now be explained by natural selection, as against what was claimed by Darwin. Some animals, they do not possess any secondary sexual characters, and this particular theory cannot be applied in such cases. So those animals with no secondary sexual characters, uh, obviously the theory of sexual selection doesn't apply in these species. Then recent evidences in ethology suggest that when males fight, they do so over the possession of a certain territory rather than over the possession of a female. So that is also against the theory of sexual selection. So these are the assumptions under theory of sexual selection and the objections against that. Okay. Now, next one we have is the artificial selection. In late 1830s, that is when Darwin was back in England after the voyage, he got interested in the practice followed by animal breeders, and he went through many publications and even attended their meetings. And he found that he proposed that evolution of a certain species could be altered by man by imposing his own ideas of selection. So this man-made selection process is what is referred as the artificial selection. So in artificial selection, what happens is it is the humans who decide, or humans play a role in the selection process, while in natural selection it is the nature which plays the important role in the natural selection. So nature selects animals with favorable characters, but in artificial selection it is the human that selects that makes the selection. So humans select only those organisms with desirable qualities that suits to his needs and interests. Natural selection, it is selecting the species or organisms which have favorable characters for their survival, for the survival of the animal. But here in the artificial selection, the selection is made with selection of those organisms are done with desirable qualities that suits the human's need and human's interest. Okay, I hope it is clear. Okay, and artificial selection forms the basis of animal and plant breeding, and basically it involves two processes, that is selection followed by hybridization. Under selection, males and females with desired characteristics are being chosen, and then it is interbred. Okay, that is hybridization take place. And Darwin believed that uh, the possibility of new species being formed during the process of the artificial selection. Okay, and individuals lacking desired qualities are prevented from mating by segregation and sterilization in artificial selection. So in artificial selection, those individuals which doesn't have desirable qualities to suit the needs of the breeder, obviously those animals are being segregated or separated from the rest, and they are even sterilized. Okay, so the quality of the stock can be improved and special breeds can be developed by artificial selection. Okay, but what happens is, every time the artificial selection needing result in viable or fertile offspring. In some cases, what happens, it may also result in sterile offspring. For example, the case of the mule. Okay, mule is actually a hybrid product of horse and donkey, breeding of horse and donkey. Okay, so this results in a sterile offspring. So every time artificial selection needing result in a viable offspring. Okay. Now the next theory which was proposed by Darwin was theory of Pangenesis in 1838, and he proposed this theory to explain heredity and variation. And he suggested that minute particles called pangenes or gemmules are produced by every cell or every organ of the body of an organism. And these gemmules then circulate throughout the body, and finally they get aggregated in the reproductive organs, okay, testes or ovary. And from there, it is passed on to the gametes. They are given to the gametes. Okay, so now what happens? The pangenes are uh, given to the gametes. When fertilization take place, what happens? Pangenes from both the parents reach the zygote. Okay, and the young ones formed from the zygote will thus represent a blending of the characters of both the parents. Okay, so Darwin also believed that acquired characters would be inherited in this way, in this mechanism. Okay. Um, Yes, because as parts of the body, yeah, here what happens is, whenever there is an environmental change, it will also cause changes in the gemmules or the pangenes. Okay, so while this modified pangenes reaches the reproductive organs and from there to the gametes, and when it passes to the next offspring, what happens is the modification or the change also passes to the next generation. So this, in this way, acquired characters gets passed on to the next generation. Okay. Um, However, this particular theory of pangenesis was disapproved later by the works done by German biologist August Wiemann. And the theory of germplasm by August Wiemann will be explained in the next presentation. Okay.